So finally this morning we're going to talk about cloud. As you heard from Jared in our short film, agencies are trying to do what's best for them, and that is leading them to evaluate cloud solutions. Services like Google Docs, BeFound, and Salesforce.com are all examples of where agencies are trying to innovate in the cloud. Tracy Voice is Director of Business Technology and something, she says it's CIO in brackets, I'm going to leave it at that, at the new Ministry of Primary Industries. Before that, she led the adoption of Google productivity tools at NZ Post, and she's at the cutting edge of cloud adoption in the public sector. Tracy's going to speak to you now.
Right. Thanks for that, Matt. I just need to correct him though. It is Director of Business Technology and Information Services, and yes, in brackets, CIO. And it's the Ministry for Primary Industries, not of Primary Industries. And we've got to just keep correcting people on that because we're here for the primary industries. I am going to talk about our approach to cloud. And to be quite honest, I'm sort of over cloud. I'm over the conferences about cloud. I'm over the conversations about cloud because we all get it, don't we? We all understand it's just a bunch of services. We have the options. We have the opportunities to use those services. Everyone gets that? Nodding heads? Not many nodding heads out there. So now I'm going to ask you to stand up. Who's actually using cloud services today in your agency? So there is a few of you. So somehow you've managed to get some cloud services in your agency. Now I'm going to ask you to keep standing if you're using cloud services offshore. Oh, few have gone down. So look around. Oh, some have actually popped up. So look around. Somehow these individuals here have found a way to bring in cloud services into their agencies. So thank you. You can sit down, and thanks for being honest. I appreciate within the public sector we just quite haven't cracked the nut. And I ask the question why we haven't cracked the nut. And some of us would stand there and say, oh, it's too hard. People's perceptions, security, it's a risk, can't possibly put our data sovereignty, can't possibly put it offshore. And all those things are in our heads telling us that, our business is telling us that, and they're finding reasons why we can't do it. My own experience in the state-owned enterprise 3 years ago allowed us to take the advantage of cloud services. And I have to say at the time some said it was leaderful, some said it was quite daring, others said it was bloody risky and said we'll wait and see it fail. But in actual fact you haven't seen in the media any security breaches. You haven't seen people talk about how it has failed, because it hasn't, and they're still using it, despite that I've left New Zealand Post and it's been a good 12 months. They're actually still using that product, and it was for business reasons at that time. It was delivering to a business reason, not a technology reason. As I said, we kind of use cloud and we overuse the word cloud. The real nut to crack is probably more around data sovereignty and whether we have data onshore, whether we have data offshore. And in actual fact, if you read carefully the government use of offshore ICT, it talks about a risk management approach. So it's how you tackle that risk management approach. And you know, I'm really excited at the fact that Stu and the team are working on a common capability and thinking about how we can bring cloud services alive in government. And that's actually quite fundamental. I'll just talk to you a little bit around my own experience a couple of weeks ago. In the Ministry for Primary Industries, we did a simulation across government for foot and mouth. And we had over 200 people involved in that process. And we were streaming a lot of data, and a lot of it was on paper, and we were bringing information together, and it was over a 4-day period of potentially what could happen to New Zealand if we actually had foot and mouth come into New Zealand. After that, there was quite a session about learnings. And one of the learnings that the business come to us and said, how can we stream data and base it on user roles? And I thought, and I asked my team to go away and think about that. What cloud platform could we use to help us just prototype and show them what's possible? Now, when I went back to the business and said, we've got an idea for you, let's prototype this concept, they said, we can't possibly use that platform. It's offshore. It's in the cloud. And I turned around and said to them, hang on a minute here. We're asking for geospatial information that's actually in the internet today. It's quite open. We're asking for data streaming from a database that's actually locally housed in Wellington. So hang on a minute here. Let's just put this into perspective. So a lot of our business people have this perception, and sometimes that can actually cloud our judgment as to whether it's risky or not. So I think about what Colin said yesterday. He kind of said to us, be less risk adverse and start looking at the common capabilities and start sharing that. I just know in the Ministry for Primary Industries we currently have a need. And that need is about looking at the way in which we're enhancing productivity in our workforce and how we actually work across our sector, work across our primary industries, and we have quite a need in that space. We know from a workplace perspective we can be productive in the office but not on the go. We can be productive in one location but not across the country or abroad. And in face-to-face meetings we can be productive, but not in different office settings and locations. So the business for us are asking for video conferencing, co-authoring, real-time collaboration. All of them are working in different ways, and we're discovering how they're making that happen, depending on what roles they're in. So they're really actually demanding of us in the ICT team to make this happen for them. Now, we could spend months and months writing requirements, going out to an RFP process and spend a lot of time doing that and getting it right based on our discussions with the business. Instead, we, or in other terms, we could actually look at a hands-on lab and actually get them to immerse themselves in that environment. So what we have done is effectively taken the lab approach. So what we've asked for is volunteers across MPI to actually be involved in an opportunity where they can experience different technologies. Now, I'm not going to name the different technologies, and I think you could probably guess who they are, but they are offshore vendors and they're quite well known for their office productivity tools. So what we've done is created a couple of proof of concepts. We've got 45 representatives. They range from directors right down to field office staff. They're across the whole of New Zealand, so we've got representatives from different locations, and they're now coming in, they've come into a session, they've had their they're now at their second sessions actually. The first sessions of looking at the different office productivity tool sets. We've split them, so some are working on one productivity tool set, others are working on another productivity tool set, and we're now bringing sessions together where we're asking them to, how do you do meetings? How would you use these tools? When you're creating a document and you want to collaborate with others, how do you do that? So we've actually quite structured sort of sessions happening with the business. The nice thing is that we're partnering with the business to make this happen. The reality is we did consider legislation, commercial, current risk and usability just to get the lab up and running. So you have to sort of, the reality is we worked with key specialists across MPI, and we cut through the fear and the uncertainty and the doubt and just focused on the facts. And I think that Stu and the team are talking about common capability, cloud computing services, and that from the centre they'll help us solve this. But in actual fact, there's a way to get through this and a way to sign some people up and get involved in that and actually take a risk management approach, which is effectively what we're being asked to do. So on balance, we've found that cloud services make sense on the basis you do your homework and you take that risk management approach. Our findings and our proof of concept and the way in which we're immersing the business into the lab environment, we're going to get some really good data from that. And we will feed that into the office productivity and the cloud initiatives that are going in the all of government. But I challenge you, think about it in your own agency. I'm sure you're struggling with the same sort of issues. We've got to upgrade our platforms, but also how are we turning that round and starting to think about what it is our business truly wants, how they're working, because all of them are working quite different. We've introduced iDevices, and straight away, we've got one person in our environment that's downloaded 160 apps onto their iDevice. I have no idea how productive that is, but the reality is that that is happening, and they're just going in there and going to the app store and getting the tools that they actually need. So we have started, we've kicked off on a journey in partnership with the business. The fantastic thing is we've got engagement. And Colin spoke about engagement yesterday. We've got engagement with the business. They're actually excited by the fact that we're asking them to be involved in labs. We have not made any decisions about technologies. This is about learning from the business, partnering with the business on the way in which they work, the way in which they're collaborating. You ask yourself why they're not using an ECMS tool, because it's too difficult. But how are they doing it? They are finding ways around it. So the nice thing is that we're seeing them excited when you put some state-of-the-art sort of technologies, the forward-looking technologies, which are actually offered in the cloud, and they get excited by that. They can see the possibilities. So I challenge you all. It's about leadership. It's about you as leaders in the business and how you engage with your business on what is possible. And really what we're doing at the moment is just demonstrating to the business what is possible. So I'm kind of over the cloud. I'm actually moving on to the next sequel, which I think big data's out there. There's some other words going on right now that we need to start thinking about. So hopefully that gives you some food for thought. Thank you.